Hello and welcome to my online classes. It's wonderful to have you with me. My name is Rachel. There'll be lots of different classes on offer, so feel free to have a look through and see what feels like what you need today. So before we get going, just to talk you through what to expect and maybe what you might need in terms of props. So there are lots of different classes and I've given some levels just to give you a rough idea of what to expect in each class. So we've got level 1, which is great for beginners. If you haven't done yoga before, this is a great way to introduce yourself to yoga. It's a slow and gentle pace, and the poses are taught through in depth. So if you're wanting something that feels a little bit more gentle, it's also a great option to choose, or if you're new to yoga. So that's level 1 classes. Level 2 classes are aimed at people who have maybe been practicing for a little bit longer. So there are maybe some more challenging postures in there, it's more active, more dynamic. So if that sounds like what you're looking for, that's level 2. There are a few all-level classes that are focused on specific areas of the body, hips, shoulders, neck, that kind of thing. And then there are also some classes that branch over between level 1 and 2, so you'll see those classes as well. So that's maybe a more active flow, a faster flow, so something which bridges that gap between your gentle flow and more challenging postures. So have a little look through and see what feels good for you. I encourage you, regardless of where you are in your practice, to go with what feels good for you on that day. Every day we come to yoga with a completely different body and with a completely different feeling in terms of what's going on, emotionally and mentally in our lives. So it might be that some days you need something that's much more gentle or restorative, and other days you feel like you want something that's active and dynamic. In terms of props, there are a few props which I recommend, and I'll talk you through those right now in case you're unfamiliar with them. So the most important one is to have a yoga mat, which might sound like stating the obvious, but I think if you're going to invest in anything, getting a good yoga mat is a great investment. They don't have to be expensive, and they don't need to be any particular brand. But the difference between yoga mats and maybe the more thicker Pilates style mats are that they are better for balancing and they're kinder on the wrists because they are that bit thinner. So this one's a 5mm mat. I also have a 3mm mat, so it depends what kind of surface you're practicing on, whether it's carpet or whether you're on a hardwood floor or a lino, but I wouldn't necessarily go any thicker than the 5mm. If you feel that you need more cushioning, grab a blanket or something like that for under your knees or under your elbows. If all you do have is a thicker camping style pad or a Pilates style mat, then that's completely okay, but this is the one that I would recommend, is to get something that is maybe a little bit thinner and more suited to yoga. So the other props that I tend to find really useful and which I will recommend for my classes, some kind of strap is great. This doesn't have to be a specific yoga strap, although if you do want any yoga props, then I can definitely point you in the right direction. I also have a discount code which I can pass on. So the main thing about a strap is that it needs to be something which isn't going to stretch loads, it's for holding the body, and something that's not too delicate. So a really good replacement would be something like the belt from a bathrobe or dressing gown, an actual belt if you've got one that's fairly long, or something like a long scarf that isn't too delicate, that you don't mind kind of stretching a little bit, holding on to, or a towel which is quite long, something like that. So there are loads of options for straps. So if you do see a class that has a strap that's needed, then it's great to grab one of those. It just gives a little bit of extra reach. The other things that I do use quite a lot are blocks. So I've got 2 kinds of blocks that I tend to use. This is a kind of thinner and larger block, and then I've also got these bricks, a little bit shorter and fatter. A good replacement for a brick is something like, I don't know, maybe a metal water bottle. These are really sturdy and they're actually a pretty similar height, so if you've got a metal water bottle, then this is a great way to swap in for a brick if you don't have one. Bricks we tend to use for a few different reasons. They can be used to help in restorative poses. which in that case you can swap in for sort of firm cushions and things like that, or they can be used to provide extension for our arms to help imbalances and those kind of things. So obviously when we're using them to put our body weight on, we want something a bit more solid. That's where things like a water bottle will come in handy, or maybe a firm book, a hardback book. For the restorative poses, you can definitely swap in for a firm cushion or something like that. These are also great for popping under the hips to give a little bit of lift. So again, something like a firm cushion, a folded up towel, it's really easy to swap in for these ones. So those are the bricks and the blocks, and I would suggest, yeah, you've got your hardback books, your water bottles, and you've got your firm cushions and your blankets and towels. Having a few cushions anyway is a great idea if you're going to do a restorative class. It's just wonderful to be able to open the body, feel cosy, feel comfortable. If you do happen to own a yoga bolster, I'll show you what those look like. Most of us don't have these, but if you do, then by all means bring one of these to restorative classes that you do, or meditations. They're a wonderful way to feel cosy. Before I got hold of my yoga bolster, what I actually used to use, which is a great alternative, is shoving 2 to 3 pillows inside a pillowcase. And that gives you the same kind of support. They're nice and big, you can lie over them, on top of them, put them under your knees. So if you do want to have a kind of a bigger bolster to work with other than a cushion, then that's what I would recommend. If you haven't got one, is just grabbing a pillowcase, shoving a couple of pillows in there, and that will give you that bigger support. So that's a great idea if you don't have a bolster. And then having some kind of blanket is really good for classes if your knees get a bit tender, if you want something under your knees, under your elbows. So this would go for any active or dynamic flow class, or your gentle flow classes, and also really good for Shavasana at the end of class. This is our relaxation pose where we lie down. It helps you to feel cozy and warm, and obviously for any restorative class or meditation. With restorative classes, meditations, or at the end of any class, if you have an eye pillow or an eye mask and you happen to just have one at home and you'd like to use that, then feel free to bring those along as well. So there are lots of different options, but it's very easy to replace these with things you've got at home. Every class will have a list of what you could bring. But most classes you can make do without the props if you need to. So definitely just see if you can get a hold of the yoga mat. You can practice without a mat at all. If you haven't got one right now and you want to get started, you want to choose the grippiest kind of carpet surface probably that you have. But the mats are better just from a security and safety point of view to stop you slipping. So hopefully that gives you an idea of the different props that are on offer, how they can help. If you've got any questions, give me a shout. And if there's anything in particular you'd like to be seeing in classes that you're not finding, then let me know. I'm always open to suggestions. And other than that, I will leave you to enjoy the classes on offer. I look forward to hearing from you soon, and I hope you have a great day today.